1, 2, 3, 4. Well, all right, folks, here we are back again for episode 9, and welcome back to McGold-riffs. And today, I have a special guest today, Johnny Press, one of the most sought-after guitar players in the local area. I'm continuing on playing and jamming and working with and talking to the great local players of the greater Boston area. It's kind of interesting. These sorts of things are out there for the national players, the Joe Satrianis of the world, the Jimmy Pages of the world. They get all that sort of press, but it's interesting. There are so many great guitar players in the greater Boston area, and many of us just don't get the sort of airplay that maybe we should in some ways, you know. So that's what really the goal of this program is, to just get out, get all the local players in, get out the people I've been seeing for the last many years on Facebook and seeing what are they doing. Oftentimes we don't get to play with each other because we all, usually it's one guitar player per gig, so so we don't get to really meet and really understand what we're trying to do. So today I'm really happy to have Johnny Press with me. Welcome to our show, Johnny.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it, and let me just read his bio for you real quickly. Johnny Press, guitar and more guitars. No banjo, huh?
No.
Okay. Johnny has been in the Boston Central Mass scene as a guitar player since the 70s, and it's interesting. The last 2 interviews I did were guys from the millennial age. It's good to see a couple of seasoned veterans here. He signed his first record deal at the age of 20 with a Boston band called GMP, who are honored to be in the Music Museum of New England, which I didn't even know about, so maybe we can talk about that. He also did session work for a long period of time. Johnny's played with a very popular band called Southpaw, recorded again with bands called Smokin' Joe, Pinch, Leader Dog, Velocity, and Big Guns, with fellow Burning Sky members John Brindis and Scott Hanley. Johnny started an R&B band called the Johnny Press Mass, and I did see some videos out there on that, which has played around New England for the past 10 years. He and Ed Peabody also do shows on the jam circuit, and I want to talk about that and how that goes, and because that's a good. Again, I'm gearing a lot of this towards younger guitar players, and the key of this are these jam sessions. Go out, play, screw up, don't play well, play incorrectly, because it's going to help you. You make mistakes there, it's just going to help you grow as a musician. Most recently, Johnny was one of the featured guitar players in Joe Black's Blackenstein. That's cool. Released in 2007. Starting a band doing Paul Rodgers. Paul Rodgers, probably one of my favorite singers of all time.
That's all we do. We do 2 hours of it.
Heard of him when he was with Free.
Yeah.
And Bad Company and a number of bands. Everybody knows Roger Daltrey. Everybody knows Robert Plant and all those sort of guys. But Paul Rodgers, to me, had the best voice out of all of them. So it must be tough to do his stuff. So I want to talk about that and talk about how do you get a singer who can do that. And the guitar parts are great too in that. This is something Johnny's always wanted to do, and I guess you just saw Bad Company.
I just went and saw him,
Rivers. And let's talk about that, okay? Yeah. It took a while to find like-minded, and that's really difficult in the being in a band, being in any sort of musical situations like a relationship. It's always difficult.
Yep.
And I've been through them all. So it's to get like-minded committed musicians who want to do the same thing. Johnny is now a member of Burning Sky, and I would assume Burning Sky is available through Facebook and all those sorts of things like that. And he's happy because these guys rock. So let's start.
I also have another band now called We Maja, so I'm busy all the time now. Ouimaja.
I want to talk about that because I just saw a video, and maybe we can do a clip of that video because I really like that, and I really like the female vocalist.
Oh, she's good.
She's really good.
Somebody, leave a long time. It's hard to be a friend, it's easy to be unkind. You treat me like a stranger, like an unseen. Cause you're a lonely woman, I'm a trapped man. I look through the window.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning here, man. What was it? Was it pre-Beatles, or what was it that got you to say, this odd thing here is what I want to do with my life?
I'd start on this. I went and took some drum lessons. I had a little drum pad.
You know what? That's a common thing of the great guitar players I've heard and talked about and read about over the years. So drumming.
Yeah, I started, but my brother had a guitar, and he was gonna do the guitar.
Older? Younger.
Younger. And so I said to him, I said, "Give me that thing. I want that thing. That's what I want."
Yeah.
You know. And so we started messing around a little bit, learning like venture stuff. And Dwayne Eddy and everybody in my town. My town was like a little Nashville. It was Southbridge, Massachusetts. Way back then, everybody and his brother was playing like Chet Atkins. You know, I mean, they were unbelievable. These guys, and I trying to go. Let's see. I was trying to learn all this Chet Atkins stuff, and I wasn't great at it, but then the Beatles came out.
Right.
And I went, wow.
Yeah, Ed Sullivan Show, 1964. Yeah, that's what did it to me. I was like, I don't know what they're doing, but I want to do it.
I knew that every little girl in my class loved them. And so it's like, okay, man, that's
I don't want to get too far down that road, but that was part of it. Part of the reason I played football, too. And, I was not a good football player, but whatever. Let's not get into that.
And so, I started, so I had a band. And all we did was like Beatles songs, and then we started doing Beatles.
So how old were you then when you had?
13.
So when did you pick up the guitar? 14. Was it like 10, 11?
13.
13.
Yeah.
Okay.
My grandfather was a flamenco guitar player.
Oh, really?
From Italy.
Wow.
And so I used to go to his house, and I'd use a big acoustic, harmony acoustic arch top acoustic.
Right.
Hard to play.
Right.
And he had a classical guitar, nylon strings.
Right.
1935. Didn't say any name on the top.
Do you still have it?
Said it inside here. It said the Gibson.
Do you still have it?
Wish I did.
I'm with you, man.
It was given to another member of my
Another
family.
thing to the young kids out there, and make whatever you do, don't sell your stuff.
Yeah.
Because I bought this in 69, 70, and it's worth a lot of money now.
Yeah, all the stuff I had is worth a lot of money. I don't have any of it anymore.
Yeah.
But
so go on. So you're 13.
13.
You pick up a guitar and join bands at the same time, or was that a year or two later?
Well, I spent almost a year in my house. I used to be an athlete. I was a baseball player. I played everything.
Sure.
And but I spent an entire summer in my house learning how to play.
Yeah.
And I said, 3 chords. Look how many songs I can do. You know.
Right. That's another thing for the kids out there. 3 songs will give you 3,000. 3 chords will give you 3,000 songs. And I'm not kidding.
So I started to learn, and what I used to do in those days is I started taking lessons, and I was reading, and I
From whom? A local
guy,
person?
local.
You know, in a house type thing, or in a school?
No, at a music store.
Okay, cool.
And we used to go, and on the way out, I'd see like the sheet music. And I'd get the sheet music, and I'd learn the songs, but then I realized they weren't in the same key.
Right, and that drove us crazy. Why would they do that?
I don't know. There was like piano. We were rooting for piano.
Right, exactly.
And if the key was actually in D, and they put it in G, but I learned the chords, and so immediately I learned how to transpose.
Right.
It was like right away. People nowadays, I mean, I play with people that you can't transpose on the spot. You know,
Right.
I learned that one of the first things I learned.
It's a tool that I use that is a differentiator for guitar players. If you can do that, and I work with a lot of female vocalists, and a lot of people are just sitting in, and it's like, okay, I got to do At Last in E flat after playing it in F for 50 years.
Don't you love flats and?
Yeah.
I hate them.
So, what were you playing then? What did you have? What was your first guitar?
I had when I first electric guitar was a Silvertone.
Right.
And I had the Silvertone. I had the little Silvertone amp, but then I had the 100-watt one.
You didn't have an acoustic at the beginning.
I had that arch that was hard to play.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah, and I had the what did I say, the Silvertone and 100-watt Silvertone.
Yeah.
That thing was great.
Yeah.
And then I went out.
100-watt Silvertone.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. I said,
Transistor, right?
Yeah.
No tubes?
No, it was tubes.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Those things are worth money now.
I bet.
And I remember I bought the first fuzz after I heard.
Right.
Satisfaction. I bought the first. It was a Maestro fuzz.
Right. I remember those. Were those the round ones?
No, they were like this big.
Right.
And
what year was this? Like
64,
late 60s?
65.
Oh, so that was really early.
Yeah, and whenever Satisfaction came out, and but it was only good for like one note at a time.
Yeah,
you couldn't really play anything with it. So this kid that lived a couple doors down from me, he had it was like a overdrive. I can't even tell you the name of it now.
Right.
But I plugged in and I went, oh, you want to trade?
This is the way to go.
So we traded, and that was great. And then I went out. And I was playing full time in a band, and I got an amp peg, the kind you take the top out of.
Oh, right, those.
Yeah, it was 212s.
Right.
It was like 100-something watt. They were.
And about 200 pounds.
Yes, but you could put stuff in it, and like drink beer and stuff.
Right.
And I got a Vox tone bender.
What is that?
That's what Jimmy Page used and Jeff Beck and all those. It was a big piece of metal about this big with like, I think it only had one knob, maybe two, and a button on it. And you immediately had sustain and you sounded like Jeff Beck. And I just went, yeah, that's, and I used that thing for years.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's basically all I ever use. Now all I ever really use is a little delay. That's it, and that's it. But I didn't know anything about.
All you have on the floor is a delay.
Yep. And so I don't. I like going into the amp. I like that. That's
right. I'm an amp overdrive guy, and he's a Marshall guy. I'm a boogie guy, but they're just
I love
great
boogies.
overdrive.
Hey, I love boogies. I've done lots of recording with boogies. I got a nice warm tone. It's just that. These cut it live better to me. They just rip right through.
Right.
And I kind of like that,
So, your high school years, you're playing in bands.
Yeah, I had a Tennessean, by the way, just like George Harrison
like
had.
jazz stuff in high school, or was it all rock and roll?
No, it was all rock and roll all the time, you know.
Right.
And though when the Rolling Stones came out and started doing blues stuff, right, I had friends that were all into like Muddy Waters and all these people, and they said, John, you want to hear the real thing? And they bring over the Chuck Berry records, the Bo Diddley records, the Muddy Water records, the John Lee Hooker. They brought them all, and they had a different tone. It didn't sound like that British sound. It had a different tone. It was bassier. It had a different feel. It was swampy. That's all I could think of. And I really liked that. And so I started getting into what they were doing. And I had a guitar instructor. His name is Bob Prince, who was incredible. Could play anything.
That rings about Bob Prince.
Well, you know, he's been gone a long time now, but he used to be the original guitar player in Paul Chapman and the Emerald Shortening Bread. That song, Shortening Bread.
I love that name.
Yeah, and this guy was amazing, and he used to show me all these jazz chords. He'd do Jimmy Smith, and he'd show me these tunings and all this stuff. And I go, what? And then he showed me, so, well, you want to do this, do that. And he'll show you. He just showed me a bunch of stuff. So I was like way ahead of the game because of this guy, you know. And so I started picking up gigs and stuff.
There's always somebody.
There's always somebody.
There's always someone,
Yeah.
and that's again to the young kids out there. You know, find that someone out there. If you're local here in the Norfolk area, there's a great school over in Rentham. But there are schools all over the place, and individual guitar players who can exponentially push your level to a greater, rather than just, and he and I were talking about it. YouTube will take you so much, and it's something that he and I, we had this cool thing we call a record player, and you just have to lift the thing, lift it. What is Jimmy Page doing here? And we really had, and I talked to one of the other guitar players, you really didn't exactly know, because you weren't seeing him.
No.
You kind of had to use these two things on the side of your head here called ears. But ears are important. YouTube is great, but finding that right guy. So that high school years, you're doing that, and then what came next?
I went to college. Okay. I had a band that was playing like all the time. We had over 200 songs.
Right.
But then I went to college, and it kind of like they all
locally around here.
No, I was living in Southbridge, and I went to Salem.
Okay,
Salem State.
That's a hall, which is a great music town. Yeah. It's one of the best. To this day, man, there are about 7 or 8 places that Brody's, I play, you know Tony Soul? The Tony Soul?
Tony Soul, I played with Tony Soul.
Yeah, Tony's great. I played with him up there. I'm playing with him, actually, we're playing the Labor Day Bash at the Tradesman.
I've done a lot of gigs with him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So he plays up there. Yeah. So you went to school up there. Were you involved in the music community?
I got to tell you, there was so many bands.
Right.
Teddy and the Pandas, remember those guys?
That rings a bell.
Yeah, well, they had a lot of great musicians. One guy played 2 saxes at the same time, the guitar player, everybody was great. People were coming in every week, they'd have dances all the time, and I'd see these great musicians come and play, and I would just go, wow, I go back in my room and I play my guitar. You know, and so I met a couple of these guys.
So it inspired you, because sometimes that can, you know, kind of depress folks. It's like, man, this guy's so good.
I used to get on a train, $1, go to Boston to the Tea Party.
Yeah. There's nobody in this audience who remembers the Tea Party. I'm a little bit younger than you, and when Led Zeppelin played there,
I was there. I'm in the picture.
Guess what? Guess where I am? Outside listening, because I was 14.
If you see, there's a picture, and you go on my site, you'll see it. There's a picture of Jimmy Page and Robert Plant on stage, and you see J.J. Jackson right in the front, 2 people behind them. That's me. That's me. And I helped carry up their equipment, so I got to sit wherever I wanted.
You know, again, where do you think this is the idea for this? I saw this in a pawn shop. And for you folks who don't know what a pawn shop is where, you know, people leave stuff and you can buy them, you know, like jewelry, you can buy, you know, guitars. But this color, this Sunburst Les Paul, I bought in probably 1970. It was just Jimmy Page.
I hate to tell you that, you know, these deluxes?
Yes.
They're worth more than the standards now.
I know. It's look at this, Johnny. It has the old baby humbuckers.
Yeah, that's the deluxe. That's what people
really
love.
Is that what
stuff.
made it a deluxe? I never knew what made it a deluxe.
That's the deluxe. They have the baby humbuckers. The matter of fact, there's a guitar player the kids love now. With his name, Doug Aldrich.
I don't know.
Well, he plays with he used to play with Dio, and he played with Whitesnake. He played with a bunch of one of his favorite guitars has the Baby Humbuckers.
And this has all the nicks.
Yeah.
And all the
people pay to get that done.
I know they call it relicking.
Yes, I have a Nash Telly that I had relicked.
So you're a kid to us,
Yeah.
in college. Were you playing in any bands in college?
No, but that's where I met the guys in GNP, Gross National Productions. They were living in Boston.
And were you studying music at Salem State?
No,
Or you were just like sociology or one of those, biology?
Whatever I could get by on. I think it was history with an English minor or something.
Right, cool.
So I met those guys, and I went down to Boston, and I jammed with them. And I had jammed with a bunch of people. So I was getting better, except that I didn't have anybody to play with.
Again, another key thing here.
Yeah.
Get out of your bedroom, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, is that way? Play with other people, and again, screw up. But the thing about guitar players is interesting. If you really get to know some of them, they're going to help you out, man. Yeah. And it is competitive, but if you go there as a young person, it's just, hey, Johnny, I love how you did that lick. Can you show me it?
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer. You know what Mozart said? Mozart said, artisans borrow and artists steal.
Yeah, of course they do.
And
That's
again, every gig, every time I see another guitar player, it's like, what can I learn from this guy and steal and call it my own? So you were doing a lot of jams and that stuff, and you met GNP. So tell me about that, because you signed a record contract at 20.
Yeah, we had a brownstone on Huntington Ave, 700 Huntington Ave. One of the guys that worked with the band let us all stay there for
in South End somewhere, right?
It's on Huntington Ave, right up near Peterborough Brigham Hospital.
Okay,
Brigham
I know
Women's.
exactly where it is.
Okay,
yeah.
And it was like 24/7 party time.
Of course it was.
And so we had people like the Jay Giles Band coming down all the time, Skunk Baxter, all these people. Matter of fact, that my cousin was the keyboard player in the Charlie Daniels Band for years, from the beginning.
Charlie?
Yeah. Oh, my I woke up and when I walked downstairs and there's my cousin on the floor. I go, hey, what are you doing?
And he played drums, you said?
No, I was playing guitar. He was the keyboard player.
Keyboard player with Charlie Daniels.
He's one of the writers of The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Listen to Charlie Daniels. He could play.
Yeah.
And everybody in that band can play.
Yeah.
He's about 80-something right now, and he's still playing.
Yeah. He still does over 100 shows a year.
So tell me about the GMP thing. Tell me about the record deal.
I went with them. It was a multimedia group. It was music. It was all kinds of stuff. It was a performance group. And we ended up playing at the Unicorn, which was on Boylston Street, Mass Ave, Boylston, right next to Berkeley. It was the Unicorn, best pizza in town, Berkeley.
On that same block on Boylston, okay. Yep. That was before my time. I started at Berkeley in '74.
All right. I was there 1970. I was there in 1970.
Yeah.
And every day I was there, I played every night for two months, over 2.5 months.
Johnny, this is a sickness. You have a sickness, man. It's a guitar playing sickness. And we all, most of us have it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And there should be an Al-Anon for guitar players. It's like, I've been playing 12 hours today.
Yeah. And so all these every day a guitar player from Berkeley come in and want to jam with me.
Right. Right.
It was like, I got to keep up with this guy. But
and were they like the
this is what I found out.
Typical jazz guys.
Oh, now let me tell you. The only one I had one problem with one person, and this was like every day. And that person was a girl, and she was a bass player, and she was so good that I couldn't. I can't even keep. What too much. You gotta. What are you doing? She was amazing.
Right.
And
who was it? Do you remember?
No.
She's probably.
I can tell you what she looks like right now, but I can't tell you her name. But every day someone would come in there, and they were all different. One guy was a guitar player who used to do stuff with Stevie Winwood, and they go in there. But most of the people that I met from Berkeley at that time, because it's changed, right? Because a friend of mine got into Berkeley because he knew the C scale. So there you go. I mean, it was different back then.
Yeah, I mean, when I was there, it was a jazz school, and I got in there in '74, and I was more of a rocker, but they turned me into a jazz guy.
Yeah, well, what they would do is they try to teach you how to make a living.
Right, exactly.
And most of the time it was like wimpy bars stuff and keyboard players and stuff. But it was different. And and the guys that came in, most of them knew how to read real well.
Right.
Couldn't play.
Right.
And I, matter of fact, I had one. I hate to say this, but I stole this guy's girlfriend. Right? Just watch her for me. Yeah, sure, okay. And so he came back and he got mad at me. He says, you're better than me, but I'm going to make more money than you because I read. I went, you're probably right, but I'm still got your girlfriend.
And reading is important. People always ask me, and I want to ask you right now, what do you consider? What kind of guitar player are you? A rocker? Jazzer, blues guy. You're more of a rock.
I kind of like when people ask me, and I just tell them, listen, I'm a guitar player. Whatever it calls for, I do.
Exactly.
And
I feel the same way. I call myself a Swiss Army knife guitar player.
Yeah.
It's like you want to waltz. I gotta.
Yeah, I've done most everything. So it's I don't know what to tell you, but what I love the most. Is. Blues rock from the 60s, because that's when I grew up. Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page.
Let's talk about that. You were talking about the blues players right now, and I was your typical rocker back then. I thought that Stones invented that stuff. Yeah. And maybe later on when I was 20 or something, man, I got to listen to this, some of this where this stuff really came from.
Yeah, I used to do Dwayne Eddy.
That you did that. You dug into the Muddy Waters stuff.
Yeah, I did.
And I do, and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards have never been shy about their influences and supporting those guys.
Actually,
to this
they did
day,
a great
Buddy
job
Guy
of them.
still plays with them.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they did a really good job copying those guys in the early record.
Right.
They did a great job. Matter of fact, a lot of this stuff is like almost exactly.
And they considered themselves in the early 60s, before they became famous, a blues band more than anything. And then Brian Jones passed away, and he was actually an influence for a lot of the cool different things they were doing. Yeah. Then they brought in Mick Taylor, and Mick Taylor was a serious blues guy.
I love that guy.
Now Mick Taylor quit the Rolling Stones about 73, 74.
Yeah.
Quit the Rolling Stones. Whatever, because they
weren't paying him.
They were losing. He was losing also the blues thing.
Yeah.
And they got Ronnie Wood, and I read something recently. Keith Richards. People always say, people always put down your playing, and I love the way he plays. Yeah. And I saw him at Foxborough recently, and he says, Ronnie and I, we're not, Joe passed. We're not the great, but we're better than any other two guys combined, and they really
play
do
a lot
sound great together.
Yeah, you can't tell one from the other.
Right. And it fits in that. Telly's straight through an amp on 10. Basically, is what they do.
Yeah. And they're using Supros now.
Even though they're using Supros, even though, Keith started the whole overdrive distortion thing. Yeah. He doesn't use it today with satisfaction.
Nope.
So tell me about the GMP thing. So you got a record deal, which something we always. I was in a band in the early '80s in Boston, trying to get a record company, and it was really difficult.
I've always been in touch with all Tom Werman from Epic Records wanted to sign us. Tom Werman is a big producer, and he really liked me.
What are we talking, early 70s?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he produced Cheap Trick. He produced Jeff Beck. He produced The Who. He produced a lot of people. Yeah. Motley Crue. All these guys. He produced a lot. He's great, and he liked me a lot. And he tried to get me a record deal with Epic, but I didn't. I ended up on Metro Media Records, which was like Bobby Sherman's label.
Mm-hmm. Bobby Sherman, he was a big teen idol back then.
Yeah, and so I used to read all his fan mail.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that a local Boston record company?
No, it was New York.
New York.
It was right Manhattan. Merv Griffin owned it.
It's interesting. This is a little early, but when I graduated Berkeley in '78, and I immediately was really going to go to LA because I want to be a studio guy. Yeah. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I was a good reader, and I could do that sort of thing. And that's when the heyday of the studio. Yeah. But I eventually I got on with I don't know if you know Ron Venerier, and Ron Venerier is a local bass player, great guy. He and I went on the road, and we did 2 years together doing Holiday Inns and all over the country in a show band sort of thing.
That's rough work, man. I'll tell you.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
6 nights a week, 4 sets a night, and my joke was I made $200 a week and spent $210.
Yeah, that's.
But the
that's
thing,
all you made.
I came back. That was it, man. This is 78, 79, and we're doing Night Fever, etc. So the thing about it is, Boston in the early '80s, when I got off the road in 1980, 81. Boston was probably the #1 music city in the country, because of the Cars, because of Jay Giles, because of Boston, because of Aerosmith. Today, when kids graduate Berkeley, they go to Nashville, New York City, or LA. Yep. But back then in the early '80s, Boston was a big thing. So Take me through that. So you get a record deal.
Boston was really big at the time, and Jay Giles was just taking off, really. And then we got the record deal, and everybody thought we were going to too. But what happened was we lost all our management in the meantime of getting a record deal.
Right.
And we cut the record and everything, and we did a big show out, and a couple of big shows out in San Francisco, and then we came back and we did a show at the Castle in Ipswich.
Cool.
And
So
a lot of big stars were there, and it was great. But that was it. Because
what kind of music was it, Johnny?
It was.
Is it out there now? Can you get it?
Oh yeah, it's a record. It costs about from $40 to $400. You know,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, cool. So what was it? Was it?
It was kind of like
hard rock?
It was a little no.
Tom Petty rock?
No, it was kind of like. It was kind of like big band music.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but every now and then we do a rock and roll thing. BCN, we used to do
How
songs.
many guys in it? You said it was like
seven.
a performance art thing.
It was
So
seven.
horns and all that?
Horns, everything, yeah. It was really good. People loved us. We packed the house all the time. So what happened was, that fell apart. I did a thing called Smoke and Joe, and we played for about 3 or 4 years in the Boston area. I used to play Katie's, all those places like that.
Katie's, right.
Katie's,
right.
yeah. And then Tom Werman again talked to me. I like the stuff you cut with them, but I want you to start GNP again. Mm-hmm. So I said, oh, okay.
Was it your band, Johnny? Were you the leader of that band?
No. I'll tell you who the leader was in a second.
Okay.
So we did it, and we started playing colleges, and we were getting really good.
And back in those days, colleges were the cool gigs because that you get the kids interested in your music, and they start. And back in those days, people actually bought these things called albums.
Yeah.
They physically bought them for $10, $15. Well, no, probably back then it was $5, something like that.
They were.
So you did the college.
Yes, gigs. we did a. I mean, we were playing. We were playing. There was a good band, and what happened was I got a call to come to Boston. I go into Boston, and we're all sitting around a kitchen.
Yeah.
And the lead singer came out and said, "I'm not going to do it anymore. I want to do my own thing." And his name was Doug Stevens. He used to go by the name of Matt Maverick with us, and now he's called Red Peters. Mm-hmm. Red Peters was on Howard Stern show a lot, and
I saw
got
that
his
in your
own.
bio, right.
He's got his own Sirius radio station, and he does the comedy cruises and stuff. He's been doing comedy for a lot. He's very successful.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted to do, and so that went down the tubes. So I took a couple of the guys with me. We started a band called Pinch, but Pinch was a musician's band. You know, I mean, we did a lot of like, if you were stoned, you'd love it.
You know, it's interesting. The band I told you about in the early 80s, it was called Struggle. And the musician could crack up with that band. And it was like Frank Zappa meets Aqualung.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was like a different time. Guess what? People like when it's straight, and when it's an odd beat, an odd time, it doesn't work, it doesn't sell.
One thing
but
I
it
learned...
was musicians. It was 5 guys, 3 from Berkeley, 2 from New England Conservatory, and it was complex stuff that would never sell a dime.
Yeah, but I mean, we had musicians came and saw us, but
right.
It was, I knew that wasn't going to go anywhere. And one of the things I learned, and it's always stuck with me, is people don't know what they like, but they like what they know. And so even if you're going to change it a little bit, play a song they know. They will love it. You know, I mean, I got to tell you, it's tough to be an original act. It's all I did for years is originals, and there's no place to go with it now. You're going to cut your own stuff. You're going to pay for it yourself. Yeah. You're going to pay for your own tour. There is no not unless you got some big producer behind you, and if few and far between that can do that. So it's a tough road to go. So unless you're absolutely beautiful and look great on TV,
Taylor Swift type thing,
you know, and you want to be a full-time, you ought to at least have another band that can make some money and do stuff that people know.
And again, I did the original thing. Mm-hmm. I did it in the mid '80s, and we went and did the Rock and Roll Rumble.
Yeah.
And we played, and it was all serious, high-level musicians. Yeah. And we thought we kicked. It was one of those nights, everything was kicking. And we got off stage, we're high-fiving, and the next band comes on. just awful. Next band comes in, awful. Then a glitter band comes in, awful. Then a bunch of Emerson students playing open chords. They came on. We're just high fiving. We got it. And we came in last place. And that was a humbling experience to me. And I said, okay. At that time, I was toggling two worlds.
Yeah.
The straight world, as we called it, the world of 9 to 5, and I was in corporate America doing high tech stuff. And I eventually ended up just going back and got my MBA, saying, okay. And I always, ever since then, pretty much just played commercial covers in millions of different things. But you were so right, and let's talk about it. I want to go on a tangent, but I've been on a thread recently on Facebook about songs today and how they're written. There are two major songwriters in the world today, believe it or not. One guy from Norway or Sweden and another guy from the US, and they're writing or co-writing all the big hits. And you're wondering why so many of the songs sound alike. And not only that, Johnny, it's all the same chord.
Yeah.
1, 6. I spent some
There's
time.
a lot you could do with those chords.
Right. And it's all the same chords, It's like, I don't mind you coming here. Well, whatever. So the point of the matter is, and there's been a lot of litigation lately, because if you're using the same chords, you're using the same notes from those chords, and there's a bunch of lawyers out there right now who have these software programs that can look at music and say, and Katy Perry just lost within the past month a $5 million suit.
I saw that.
Who's
Just
that kid?
remember,
Ed Sheeran?
there's only 12 notes.
Exactly.
So if you think, I can't learn that song, there's only 12 notes. So if you just pick to all 12, there it is. You got it. So,
and when you think about it, some of these lawsuits were about a style of music.
Yeah, I know.
And if that's the case, then Chuck Berry should be suing everybody because everybody uses that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So take me more through that. So you're doing that, and that took a lot of courage to do what you were doing original stuff.
That's all I was doing back then. And matter of
because
fact,
there's no money. It's like that's my opinion.
Well,
but would you concur with that? There's little
at
money.
the time there was some money.
Okay.
At the time.
Yeah.
All right. Now I went from that to 2 years of just recording, doing stuff for other people and stuff. Now as far as giving me charts, they give me chord charts, or they just let me listen to it and I play with it. Because my ears are good like that. I'm good at picking up stuff. And I ended up doing, like, producers would come. I used to go to Connecticut recording studios in Bridgeport. And people would come in, and producers, and they'd want to get some stuff down so they could show the band how they want it.
Yep.
And I played on a bunch of stuff. They give me $10 or so. I was just hanging out down there. And so I did a lot of that, and some people in the area in Central Mass wanted me to do stuff. So I played with them for a couple of years, but I didn't play out. And I was really disappointed I wasn't playing out.
And I love playing out more than anything.
Yeah, and so I joined a band called Southpaw, which was a huge band from Central Mass all the way down to, I don't know.
When you're saying huge, you're saying 100 gigs
I'm talking
a year
like
type
a couple thousand a night sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you're making that?
I wasn't.
Right.
The guys that owned it.
Oh, right, exactly.
But I had
serious money.
I had a salary.
Right.
I mean, I was making more than $300 a week.
Wow.
And I had insurance.
Right.
I had everything. I mean, here you go, John. Here you go, John. Here you go. And I played 6 nights a week. We could have played 7, but we took that off. And in those days,
what years were we talking about?
We're talking from about 79 to 83. So 80 to 83.
Good chunk. Yeah.
And that's all I did. I played with them. I had tons of equipment. I was back into Marshalls back then. I had 100-watt Marshalls.
Yeah.
And I was using Fender guitars. I started with a Flying V. Ended up, because it was a country rock band. I started using none of the lead 1s and the lead 2s Fenders.
No.
They were like kind of like this, but not quite. And I started using. They were a good blend between the two. Like this is too. And this is a humbucker I put in there.
Right.
All right.
Now, humbucker is more like a sort of Gibson sort of sound. And
the reason I put this
single coil here,
is I always had single coils on this. But I went to do that album for Joe Black called Blackenstein, and he's a hard rocker.
Right.
So I said, well, I think I better put a humbucker in there, and that's what I put in, and so that's what you hear, and so what was I? So I did Southpaw for a while till that just fell apart after a while.
I mean, that's like $4,000 today.
Yeah.
In real money.
Yeah.
And I know the best bands in Boston, in Greater Boston right now, doing covers in the big clubs.
Yeah.
$1,200-1,300. That's max.
Yeah.
So 30 years ago, we don't even want to get into that because essentially, I'm making about what I was making in the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is.
I ended up starting my own band called Velocity, which played in Boston from about 83 to 85, right? And we did lots. I did 40 recordings with them. And people thought
originals.
Oh yeah, all mine mostly,
So
except for a couple.
back then, were you trying to get on BCN, FNX, and all
we
that stuff?
were getting on all these places. As a matter of fact, I was on
V66. You doing
on
videos? Or
AAF at the time had a show every Sunday night. It was all locals, and we were #1 for like 19 straight weeks. And so, yeah, we had some good songs, and we were great musicians, and people from New York. I mean, it was a great band. We played all the big clubs. We played the Channel, played Paradise, played Bunratty's all the time.
In my hometown,
and I loved Bunratty's. I had a great time.
Bunratty's was. It was Bunratty's, it was the Rat, it was the Channel, were the three big ones. And oftentimes Bunratty's, I was the opening band for a bunch of bands. And Channel, they'd get 5 or 6 bands, and you would get paid nothing. But you were playing the Channel, and the biggest bands of the time came through and played the Channel.
Yeah, I always got paid because the first time we played the Paradise, we packed it. You know, you used to have
Paradise was really the #1 room. Still to this day, it's a big room.
They used to give you like 50 tickets.
Right.
Sell these, and you'll get paid. That way, and that's what they would do for your original act. Right. And you weren't known yet, so we did that, and we packed it, and we never had to ask again. They paid us every time after that, and all those clubs paid us. Because I'd look out in the audience and there'd be John Butcher sitting at the bar, and Hirsch Gardner and all these people. I mean,
from New England,
So, I mean, there was a lot of people around in the mid '80s.
So what happened with that band? Why didn't they get that
break? Management. Well, we got a lot of breaks. I mean, I was in New York more. I was all over the place.
Did you do an album?
We cut stuff, but I didn't make an official album, though I have it on CD as a CD.
And back in those days, you had to pay serious money to record.
It was $140
It's not like
an
you
hour.
did in your bedroom today.
$140 an hour.
I did one album with Struggle. It cost us about $20,000 from what I remember. We went into a cool studio down in, I think it was Warwick, Rhode Island. It was a pretty famous place. I forget the name of it, but 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. Everything. There were 8 songs, overdubs, everything in 12 hours, because that's all we could afford. That was it.
I still go
and it got some airplay on the major radio stations.
I just went and did when I did that album for Joe Black. I went in, and in 2 hours I got 14 guitar tracks. And I don't, the guy that runs the Compound Studios in Rentham, great place. And
I did not know that.
The guy's name is Adi Knife.
I know him. He's a monster guitar player.
He's a monster, And he looked at me like nobody does that. I
haven't heard from Art at all.
Oh, I hear from him all the time. He's doing great.
Yeah,
Matter of fact,
he's
cutting a solo album with Tony Franklin, the guy from The Firm, the bass player.
He was with a band called Theory 13. They were all kids.
Yes.
And then Art's our age. And I got to reach out to him. I got to get him on this show.
I'll call him.
Guy,
I got him on my cell phone. I'll
call him because I've lost all his information.
I'll give it to you.
So that's cool. So then what happened?
Velocity, the management decided, people die, people move on, stuff happens.
Right.
So I ended up starting a band called Big Guns from all my own songs. We recorded 5 songs. Got management, got everything, which is what I used to do. I used to cut the songs, get the management, then they get the record.
Right.
And what happened was I was working a job to survive, for my family.
You're working day gigs.
Yeah. And I was on a pole. I was a cable guy, right? I was on a pole, the pole snapped. And I broke my back.
No way.
And from that incident, I didn't play again for 12 years.
No way. 12 years?
I didn't pick up my guitar for 12 years. I didn't. It was sat in the case, and every night people would call me up. I go, no, I'm done. I can't stand up and play anymore. And finally, one guy came down, a guy named Bobby Young, came down my house with equipment.
Yep.
And he goes, you're gonna play. So I pulled out my guitar. I had an old.
What year is this? 90s?
1999.
Okay, so that's a while, man.
So I pulled out the guitar.
Right.
I
can
plug
imagine what
it
the
in.
strings felt like.
They were in tune.
No way.
It was perfectly in tune. And I just went,
That's a sign.
that's what I said. So he took me down to this place to jam, and I knew everything in my head, but my fingers it was kind of rough.
Right.
And
playing music is just like anything. Playing tennis or whatever. If you don't do it for a while,
it was rough. It was a little rough for me. But I went and I played at a jam, and I got a standing ovation. And because I did that, and then I said that came back home.
That's essentially 20 years ago.
Yeah, and so
Right,
I said,
20, yeah.
I said to my wife, I said, maybe I should be doing this again. You know, people like it because there ain't that many guitar players out there at the moment. You know,
Right.
And it took a little while to get better, you know, to get where I am now, which is kind of about where I was when I got hurt, and but. It's been quite a journey. It's a lot of fun.
Let me talk to you about this because you're a little bit older than me, and I bet you're feeling like I do. You know, you get to a certain point, young people, where you understand that there are only so many more years left on the planet. And I've never stopped playing, but 10 years ago, I realized I wasn't getting the phone calls I used to get. So I created my own thing.
Yeah.
And I created my own acoustic thing. And now it's doing about 150 gigs a year, which
well, that's a lot.
But
that's,
believe it or not,
yeah.
But the thing about it, because I'm very, very aware of the time I have left to play, and at my age, I'm hoping for another 15.
Yeah.
So are you feeling that way? That it's like there's only
every now and then.
because you've been through some health issues. We don't want to get into that, but that must put us perspective on.
I always tell people I'm going to die
time.
on stage. So if you want to come see something special, come see me.
You know, and I've joked about that only half-heartedly. I kind of want to be like when I'm carrying my stuff out.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, who's that old guitar player who just passed away there? So that's it. You want to do this for the rest.
Yeah. This is what I do. This is who I am.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's when I did other things, it was kind of soul-sucking. I mean, I used to do wedding things. And to me, it was a soul-sucking experience.
It's funny. I work with a lot of young female vocalists, and I've used that same thing. If you remember Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
With Sigourney Weaver, she would suck the soul right out of you. Yeah. That's what. It's 7 years. If you do 7 years in a wedding band, you can never go back.
Yeah.
That's it. Your soul is gone, and you just become this bland sort of player, and you make a lot of money. But it's your soul
you make a lot of money.
Worth that money. But again, that's changed because now DJs are taking a lot of that business.
That's true.
So when a good wedding band would do 70 to 80, more than one a week, and doing like some of the big bands in Boston are making $8-9 grand for weddings.
Oh yeah.
That's no more like 15 to 20 now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I have all these hotshot singers who are calling me right now for my little acoustic gigs. So go on. So that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing the last 20 years? And we got like 10 minutes. So I want to get to today.
All right. I started doing. I started going to all the jams and learning how to play again. And I got hooked up with a thing called American Blues Jam. It was like this, except it was shown every Thursday night all across the world.
Cool.
And I hosted it. I brought bands in. I got to meet a lot of people again, and started playing again. I started a band called the Johnny Press Mess. We were together for about 15 years, and that was a great experience. It was like mostly blues and R&B and funk type thing. Now those guys are playing without me right now. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I did all that Tower Power stuff, Cool. So
I did that, and then I did the thing for Joe Black, which was listen.
Now,
I get called when I
Who
get
is
called.
Joe Black
Joe Black used to be in Balloon in Boston. We played with Charlie Farron.
Cool.
And he had another band called
Charlie
Ball
Farron's a big name in Boston.
And he had another band called Ball and Chain, which was like a hard rock band in Boston, right? And when he hooked up with me, I said to him, "You should I don't want to do Ball and Chain. If you want to do something, why don't you do a solo record?" Which is what he did. And if you heard the record,
I'll check it out, man.
I'll give you one before you leave.
Cool.
He doesn't do two songs the same.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's really a good record. I like it. I'm on 7 of the songs out of the 9. So
cool.
So,
and so take me up to today, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything.
Well, what happened was I started after Johnny Pressman, I started the Burning Sky band. All right. So.
Yep.
But then I found out I had cancer.
Right, and we were talking earlier about the big C that gets guys our age either that or heart attacks. You know.
So I had that, and I was working all day long, going to treatment, radiation, chemo.
Where, in Boston?
No, in Worcester at UMass.
Yep.
And I would work.
What kind of cancer was it, if you don't mind?
Huh?
What kind?
It was a cancerous tumor that got into a lymph node. It was stage 3.
Ooh, wow, man.
Yeah, and so I was going through all these treatments, and I was playing with Burning Sky on weekends. And I was going. People, after I was done, they said, "You still worked and you still did all that?" You see, I come from that's all I know how to do.
That's our generation.
Yeah, and I don't know how to do it any other way.
I don't know if you've gone on to socialsecurity.gov, but I did recently because I'm an old guy. And I saw my first thing there where I made money. It was like $350 in 1969. So that's what, 50 years of working, and that was our generation. Not that I'm sure the young kids are working hard too.
Yeah.
But so go on.
And so I started doing that, and that band took off like immediately.
Uh-huh.
So it was.
What was the band? What's the name?
Burning Sky.
Burning Sky.
Yeah,
right,
that band took off immediately, and I was always doing the blues jam stuff. I would do stuff like with guys like Scott Branas. I don't know if you know Scotty. Scotty's a great singer, and Ed Peabody, and we go into clubs, and we'd be the guest artist.
And when you do that, would you bring your own amp? Because I always hate.
I always bring my own stuff. I don't trust anybody else's stuff. Some guys have backlines, but if I walked in with my half stacks, which I have 2 Marshall half stacks, they'd freak out.
Yeah, but that's perfect.
They look at this, and they have no problem. And, and it's really, listen, I can adjust the volume. It sounds pretty good at that volume, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I use, and it seems to work out real well. And you get to
Those
know.
things are iffy. Sometimes there are people who can't play. Sometimes
that's true. But when you're the guest artist, you get to pick. Who you're playing with.
Right,
and most of I play at a few of these places that the house band is terrific.
Cool.
And the guest artist always plays with the house band. Cool. And you never know who you're going to end up with otherwise. But because I've been around so many of these things, when I show up at one of these jams, they usually put me with somebody good.
Cool.
So, I like to do that every now and then. I got to get better. I got to meet other people. I'm always striving to get better, and that's the only way I know how to do things.
So take me up to today, man. The 2 bands you got going now.
Now I got another band called Wee Maja, and the lead singer's name
What is Wee Maja?
I have no idea.
Wee Maja.
Sounds good, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm playing with Allison McTavish. She's a great singer.
Yeah, she sounds great.
And some of the local guys, Ron Daigle.
The other guitar player sounded good, too.
He's a good player.
I heard the video the
Darren
other day.
Pinto, that's his name. He used to play with George Thorogood.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. George Thorogood made his life, gave him a 59 Les Paul and a Ferrari.
Nice.
Yeah, I would
That
say,
make my life.
Yeah.
So the other band is the Paul Rogers Band. What is the name of that one?
That's Burning Sky.
Cool.
Yeah, and you can see that online. Matter of fact, if you go to officialburningsky.com or on Facebook.
Right. How can people get in touch with you, look at your stuff, etc.?
Yeah, well, you can look at all you got to do is put Johnny Press in YouTube. It's got to be over 100 videos in there. And some of them not too good, Some of these jams, you never know.
Yeah, have you posted them, or the fans post them, or what? How did they get on?
Well, sometimes if I want to see something and they can't, they'll put it on YouTube and here it is.
Right. And that's always iffy when you play it live. It's like, man, I don't want that one out there.
I just call the guy and said, please, get rid of these 6. I don't want to see them. There's too many mistakes. And they sound great to me. Yeah, not to me. I've been on YouTube for 11 years now. I've got
well over 800 videos on there, and I've got 67,000 views, but 32 down thumbs. And that's all I think about. Who are those 32 jerks out there? So we're going to wrap up again. This is Johnny Press. It was great. Thanks for coming, man.
Hey, my pleasure.
You sound great. You look great. And I'm going to be following you from now on. And it's so cool to play with these folks that you see on Facebook. And it's like, man, I want to get that guitar player on my show. So here we go. We're going to do an old Hendrix song. Thank you. That's it, man.